Dom, just before we get into today's podcast, I just want to shout out our first ever donation on the channel, which is pretty crazy. Going to bring it up on screen. This was from Thomas Dowd, and he donated £5. So a big shout out to you for being the first donator here on the channel. What an absolute legend. Have you got anything to say about Thomas?
Oh, he's a great guy. I've known him since Vietnam in the 70s. We go way back. But yeah, no. Thank you, Thomas. Great show in there. Thank you for the support. And we're excited to bring you a lot more content.
Before we get into today's podcast, I'm actually going to do another call to action because we grew significantly after we said it. For those of you that haven't already subscribed, make sure you do. We are closing in on 7,000 subscribers. And the more subscribers we get, the more better these episodes get. And guests are going to be coming in very, very shortly, along with the call-in show. So make sure you subscribe. Good things come to those who subscribe.
That's true. And we've got a lot to talk about today. Let's not waste any time, Dan.
Yeah, well, look, listen, we, of course, the last episode on Friday, we discussed, of course, that ruling. We're going to be diving into that judge a little bit later on and the dark history behind him. But we've seen what the Labour government actually came out and said via their lawyers in the courtroom. Remember, they said the rights of asylum seekers trump the people of Epping. And that's something that we've seen. However, we've seen the Labour MPs start to do the rounds on TV as they return back from recess. And they were asked questions. And Trevor, the Sky News journalist, basically asked her the question, put the question to her, and this was her disgraceful response.
Do you agree with the Home Office's submission that the rights of asylum seekers are more significant, more material than the interests of local populations?
It is about a balance of rights. When people come to this country and claim asylum, we have a responsibility as a government to assess their cases and to process them. For those who have got a clear right to be here, for those who have evidenced what they are facing in terms of persecution, refugees, then that will be decided. Where they don't, then we will take action to remove people from the country. So we do have a responsibility to process those cases and yes,
and
to
the
provide
responsibility to those asylum seekers is more important than the responsibility to those who live locally.
Our responsibility to those who live locally is also important as well. And I completely understand why many people in places like Epping, where hotels have opened up, feel incredibly frustrated about that. They have a right, of course, to demonstrate lawfully and peacefully. Of course, where it crosses a line, that isn't consistent with our long-standing traditions in this country of respect for the rule of law, respect for the police,
hang on.
and our responsibility to make sure that we have safe communities for everybody living there. And I know people don't like us, even a year in, as a government, saying, this is what we inherited. This is what we inherited, right? There was a widespread use of asylum hotels by the Conservatives that increased enormously at enormous cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah, you keep going back to the Conservatives. I want to ask you...
Yes, but it won't be a quick fix. We will sort it.
Your lawyers, under your guidance, have said in terms that the rights of asylum seekers are more important than the rights of local people in Epping Forest. Would you at least acknowledge that that is what they will hear? And it's up to you. Ministers can say, we agree with that, or we don't agree with it. You can't simply say, let's balance things. Do you agree with what your lawyers said, or don't you?
Yes, of course we do.
Oh, there's a smoking gun. There you go. It came out. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a lot of that is just political garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about this balance of, rights and legislation. I mean, they said they have to follow the law, yet they are in charge of setting the law that we follow. So if the law's wrong, well, then change it. And, it's a pretty clear cut, with that yes or no answer she ended her monologue with, that the rights of the asylum seekers are more important than the rights and safety of the local community. It really just goes back to, what rights do people have as constituents of a small part of a town or whatever. It baffles me to think that, these people, through all of their might and all of their sort of protest power, do not have the right to enforce their interests onto the local council. It's like the government rules all.
One thing that I seen there as well is, I mean, I know the stats when it comes to the individuals that are staying at asylum hotels, and a lot of the Labour government like to push saying, well, not all of them crossed over on small boats, but I think 50 to 60% did, or at least came from France by some merit, whether that's through a truck or whatnot. However, she was like, we have the responsibility of processing and taking our fair share of asylum seekers and working out whether they have the right to be here or not. But I always say it, every single podcast, people are going to say, Dan, you're always repeating yourself. And I am, because it's a point that is always the same. It's not changed. These individuals, she said, escaping persecution again. These individuals have come from France. A lot of them have come from France. And they've passed through 16 safe countries to get here. So it's clear as day that they're no longer, they've become economic migrants rather than asylum seekers that are escaping persecution and fearing for their life. And that's the bit that they don't see, but that's the bit they try and gaslight, saying, oh, all of them we need to process to make sure that they have the right to be here. The ones from France, it's pretty simple. The ones that came on a boat from France have no right to be here because they're economic migrants. They were already in France, they were safe. They already passed through all these countries, they were safe. So I've done your work for you. The ones that come on boats, there's no danger to them. They're all fine.
She's basically saying that, these people have the same rights as UK citizens, yet they're not UK citizens. And we know that people, I sort of covered this before, it's Article 6, the Dublin Regulation of the European Convention of Human Rights, makes sure that asylum seekers cannot cherry pick the country that they claim asylum in.
Yep.
So every single person that comes over on a boat is breaking that legislation, which is the legislation we follow, and it's the loophole that allows them to come into the country. They are not afforded the same rights. They should not be afforded the same rights as UK citizens because they are not UK citizens. They are illegal by definition and they should be jailed as criminals and deported. But it goes to show that I think the actual reason why the Epping hotel is still open is a lot more sinister.
It's a lot deeper, and I think it comes down to this in particular judge as well. Now, we already know that it was already in court, it was already there that they said that the Epping, the Bell Hotel was going to be closed down, ship bust, right? And Labour had lost that initial appeal, but then they appealed again with a different judge, almost like it'd been cherry-picked on. This man called Lord Justice Bean. He was the guy that, of course, ruled that migrants can stay at the Essex Hotel. And the dark bit, he's a former chair of the Fabian Society, which is, of course, the socialist think tank linked to Labour. And when you research the Fabian Society, it gets a whole lot darker. Do you want to start us off on the Fabian Society?
I cannot wait. So 1884, the creation of the Fabian Society in London. It was effectively the first political think tank in the UK. It's a left-wing think tank for Edwardian Britain. Now, Fabians believed in a gradual moral transformation of British society into socialism. The Fabian socialists therefore devised a strategy of gradualism, which is kind of different to the Marxist kind of revolutionary socialism. Now, the name comes from Fabius, who was a Roman general. Now, Fabius was most famous for patiently waiting against his battles against Hannibal. So I've got a quote here from the Fabian Society. For the right moment you must wait, as Fabius did most patiently when warring against Hannibal. Through many censured his delayed, but when the time comes you must strike hard, as Fabius did, or your waiting will be in vain and fruitless. Now, the key parts of the Fabian Society is they were instrumental in the creation of the Labour Party. So there was three main groups who were instrumental in the Labour Party creation. So the Fabians were a major participant, along with the Trade Union Congress, which is the TUC, independent Labour parties, and also the Marxist Socialist Democratic Federation. So we know there and then that the Labour Party was created by Marxists. Now, as it stands right now, there are 141 Fabian Society members who are currently members of Parliament within Labour, as stated in a LinkedIn post.
Yeah, well, I just want to add a little bit more on that in terms of what their sort of beliefs are. They're socialism, right? And as you said, they like to be introduced their stuff gradually through reform and legislation rather than by revolution, as you kind of touched upon.
Yep.
Now, the Fabians believed in using education, debate, and political influence to steer society towards equality and social justice. So we know what their remit is as an organization. We know what they're all about as a group. And as you said, 141?
141.
They're in the Labour Party. And again, they have been linked to the party since the dawn of time, essentially, since Labour began, and do play a key influence. And this influence today still exists. And of course, they're a left-leaning policy institute. And still to this day publishes pamphlets, holds conferences, and advises Labour politicians. So
some of the actual policies that they have sort of pushed and tried to introduce are things like the NHS, other things such as like universal credit and sort of benefits welfare system as well. These are the type of policies that they push. They want to also do gradual increases in taxation, direct taxation. So before, the system of taxation was revolving around tariffs, and then they wanted to introduce direct tax, which is obviously the payee tax we have today. So that's one of the main sort of policy pushes that they've pushed as well. Now, I've actually gone through their sort of 1884 manifesto, which really gives you an insight into some of the policy decisions that Labour are making today. So I've got a couple here that I want to go over. Now, one of them, it says, the practice of entrusting the land of the nation to private persons in the hope that they will make the best of it has been discredited by the consistency with which they have made the worst of it, and that the nationalisation of the land in some form is a public duty. So right now, the nationalisation, that is basically code word for the theft of property, which history proves is disastrous. We can look into case studies in South Africa where these farmers get their farms taken from them, and they go from, a productive farm that makes, a lot of food to barren wasteland. The same in Rhodesia, otherwise known as Rwanda. The same thing happened there.
Zimbabwe, no?
Rhodesia. Well,
it
happened in then they changed it.
No, but there's Rhodesia was Zimbabwe is now Rhodesia.
It's the other way around.
Was it?
Yeah,
Rwanda?
it was Rhodesia first, and then it was Zimbabwe. Did I say
No,
Rwanda?
you said Rwanda. Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's what I was trying to say, yeah.
Yeah.
So no, Zimbabwe is now Rhodesia.
That's correct.
Was Rhodesia, sorry.
So we can actually look at that philosophy into legislation that's happened recently with the farmers' tax and inheritance tax. So that is an attack on private property, and is also, a way to seize this land through this progressive, gradualistic, legislative reform.
Yeah.
One more is that since competition among producers admittedly secures to the public the most satisfactory products, the state should compete with all its might in every department of production. So the issue is here that state competition is an oxymoron because the government subsidizes themselves with tax. The government effectively has unlimited wealth and money because it can print money. Therefore, state competition against private residents is always going to be unfair because they have unlimited money. Now, we've seen this actually through the state competing with private residents in the housing market. So, if I was to go rent a house in London, I would actually be competing against government subsidized HMOs. So we're seeing these type of philosophies get pushed into law this is 140 years later.
Yeah, no, I see it. And if we want to go a little bit darker into it and talk about this judge and the way Labour's approach is with illegal migration and not really tackling it, they're kind of saying that they're doing something, but they're not. You can clearly see that they want it to continue. Where do you think that interlines back in history as to why they want this to happen? Is it for the vote or?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why, it's kind of like a clear sort of method to get re-elected here is that all these people, if they sort of naturalize all these people, they're all going to vote for the party that did that for them, right?
Yeah.
So they're effectively importing voters. Now, Labour know for a fact that they're not going to get the next election. So for them, this is a massive push to bring in as many people as they want, which effectively are all going to vote Labour.
Yeah, and looking at the sheer numbers over the last few years, that was something that will work. I just want to touch on the Fabian Society again quickly, and maybe their sort of early symbolism and their sort of emblem and logo, right? As I said, like, it was founded in 1884, and the famous one, it's not the logo anymore, but the one that they started off with, it first appeared in the 1890s, and it was a wolf in sheep's clothing. We'll get it up on the screen. And as I said, it kind of goes into what that is. If you think about the wolf in sheep's clothing, it tells you everything you need to know, right?
Yeah, it tells you exactly what their philosophy is. And it's not just Labour MPs that are part of the society. We've got, businessmen. We've also got, as I said, this judge. So we've got Lord Justice Bean, who was the ex-chairman, not just a member, but the ex-chairman of the Fabian Society. Now, is that not a massive conflict of interest?
It is massively, but because it's not a Labour judge, it's linked through, in a way, they're closely aligned.
Yeah.
However, that's probably the way that they get around it. But I thought, the justice system is to, make a decision without fear or favour. And this, contradicts that massively. And this individual, the fact that it was already shut down, then they had an appeal, and then they handpicked one of their own to make the decision, just tells you everything you need to know. But this is not getting spread around. This information isn't there for everyone. See, no one's talking about it.
100%.
Why?
This is the problem. So when you have the judicial arm sort of join forces with the state, now the judicial arm is meant to sort of keep the state in checks and balances. It's meant to be the unbiased sort of legislative arm of society. And yet there is this kind of crossover, this link between the two. So when Labour want things to happen, they just go to their Labour judges who will sort of back them. Now this judge was actually was a Labour member for 28 years. Again, we're talking about a man who is meant to be unbiased in this scenario, and there is clear favouritism. I think, Lord Justice Bean, how is this man able to get this case? Firstly, obviously, we understand probably through Labour picking and choosing what...
Oh, we know how they got it, but how was he allowed to get it? Do you know what I mean? How is there not more uproar about it? They can't be having individuals like this, making decisions on their behalf. It's crazy.
Exactly. And it is being challenged. So a man called Mr. Barrett, who is a barrister, he's highlighted that Lord Justice Bean has been a Labour member party for 28 years, has formerly served as the deputy chairman of the Society for Labour Lawyers, and is a former chair of the Fabian Society, which, as we understand, is a socialist think tank. Now, the issue is that he says that Lord Justice Bean earned in failing to properly consider, or if not failed to consider, failed to properly apply the test of his apparent bias. So this is being challenged in court due to his bias.
That's good. No, that's good. I was going to say, I never seen that report, but it's good that, of course, it is being challenged, and hopefully...
Exactly. And he also said, in my opinion, Lord Justice Bean has earned in agreeing to hear such an important case when it involved his friends in Labour. So there is this champagne socialist class of elites who are, coalitioning together in order to implement their sort of will onto the public, which is directly against the will.
Exactly.
It's important to understand that these biases run deep. Now, you have these road judges. Road judges should be completely eliminated because they need to be unbiased. If we're going to have a fair judicial system, we need to have unbiased judges. That is the cornerstone of a fair democracy. And when you have this sort of crossover, it just underpins everything.
I agree. Have you got any more on this or the Fabian Society?
I do have one more thing. So I was reading a report from 2019 called The Open and Ethical. It's a collection of essays the Fabian Society used to criticise the hostile environment of policies as cruel and ineffective in relation to immigration. Now, one of the contributors to this essay was David Lammy. Obviously, and he's an advocate for regularizing undocumented migrants, ending indefinite detention of asylum seekers, and ensuring appeal rights, arguing these reforms benefit both migrants and society. But he put migrants before society. in that statement, which I think is quite sinister.
Well, it goes with what they're all saying. They're all towing that sort of mantra right now, though, aren't they? They're saying that the asylum seekers' rights are far greater than the people of Britain.
100%.
So, I mean, it's all, at least one thing is that they're not lying, I suppose. I mean, Keir Starmer's doing one thing, posting stuff on social media about detaining and deporting, but all of the others, they're singing from the same hymn sheet at this moment in time,
100%.
and actually kind of contradicting their own guy at the top. Home Office, publicly in court. You've got that Labour MP on TV. Then you've, of course, got David Lammy and the other 141 members that probably have those views.
Exactly. That's why you can't believe these like propaganda videos that Keir is putting on all over X and Facebook and stuff
Who's
like
he
that.
trying to kid? Yeah, I don't
Who
know.
exactly? Who is he trying to fool?
Of course, like after this, after this, we've seen a weekend's worth of protests, and I feel like on this podcast we're constantly talking about protests, but that's just that a reflection what's currently going on in the UK, and I just felt I would come on to sort of onto X, and we'll just have a little look through it together. And go through some of the footage, I suppose. Elon Musk has been rampant this weekend about the UK. So much stuff kind of going on. But just before we kind of go through this, I wanted to show you this clip of the BBC journalists getting chased out of a migrant hotel protest in Portsmouth for their biased coverage.
BBC here, British Brainwash Corporation. No.
BBC not welcome here!
You're not welcome here! Not welcome here! BBC 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 not welcome here! BBC's not welcome here! BBC's not welcome here! BBC's not welcome here! BBC's not welcome here! Come on! Fuck off! We just fucked off the BBC.
So there you go. BBC not welcome here. Chucked out and turfed out for their biased coverage. That's, I mean, decades of hatred there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Stems
yeah.
deep in the UK. They hate
It does. It does. You know, you can go back to 40 years ago with their covering of Jimmy Savile, and since then they've been an enemy of the people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But, I mean, we're not going to go on every video, man, but, like, just scrolling through X, you're starting to see, like, loads of stuff erupt. Of course, there was big protests in Australia yesterday as well.
Yeah.
Which I think we might dive a little bit deeper on later. But keeping in UK, like, look at the scenes again there. This is just, like, happening everywhere at this moment in time in the UK, which is super cool to see. Again, there was, like, loads and loads over the weekend, but there was like some big action points as well. Did you see that video of the police pepper spraying each other?
I have, and I just think, it's just a bit of a DEI like crisis, right?
Shall we watch this quick?
Yes.
He's spraying everyone in the crowd. Oh shit! Oh, he's got her. Oh, takes your own medicine.
Wait, cricket. What's it with? I mean, that little a scene from a comedy sketch.
Yeah.
The police, they've kind of lost their standards over the last few years, haven't they?
It's true. But I do have a video from Epping as well.
Epping, yeah.
Yes, in relation to the council tax. Now, obviously, the people of Epping are very frustrated with this ruling, and this is what one of the protesters had to say. Obviously, in relation to the flip of the ruling.
We refuse to pay the television licence fee. Furthermore, we will not pay council tax. As non-payment of taxes has long been a legitimate form of protest in our land, we call upon English people to join us in this peaceful stand. Raise the colours, fly the St George Cross across England and the Essex County flag in our proud country. Let us unite in these actions. Refuse the licence fee. Withhold tax and display our flags with pride. This is our message, and we ask you to share it with the nation. Protect our children!
Yeah, and I think, she's absolutely right. The withholding of taxes is a legitimate process, because if the council cannot demonstrate the public's will, then what is the council there for? What powers do people have? Is this just a forced tax?
Yeah.
And the council is clearly, obviously, I know they tried to get them on the planning angle to shut down the hotel, but at the end of the day, it was overruled and the hotel still stands.
Yeah, no, I agree. I support those people, of course, doing it. There was Canary Wharf, of course, one of the big hotels. Obviously, you were talking about Epping, but yesterday as well, this was a big police clash with protesters yesterday at the Migrant Hotel in Canary Wharf shopping centre.
Yeah. Obviously, I agree with the cause. I wouldn't recommend protesting with masks on, though.
Yeah, no. I mean, Tommy Robinson's called for people not to wear masks later on anyway, in terms of on the 13th of September.
Yeah.
He said like that shouldn't be happening, and doesn't want it to happen. There's also some more ones as well. I think you know him very well, Young Bob. Yeah. He basically was pepper sprayed at the as one of the journalists. I think a couple of the journalists were pepper sprayed again by the police. But I've seen a lot from the police over the weekend. I mean, did you see some of the scenes in Epping, the way that they were like treating them and stuff, like people?
As in the police were treating the
Like
people.
yeah, like really heavy-handed, using kind of excessive force to like push onto people. But here's this like journalist, of course, that was like pepper sprayed alongside is it Young Bob?
Now this is crazy. I've never had anything like this before. I don't think it's in my eyes. I think this is just sweat. This has been terrible. I can feel my face burning though. I've got right up in it. This has been the most crazy police thing I've seen so far here in Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're saying that. I mean, you don't like the whole masking, do you? I mean, I'm not into it either, to be fair.
No, I think, look, guys, it has to be non-violent. The only way we're going to have a voice is if it's non-violent. And if we justify, these mass protesters causing violence, the slope gets slippery. We don't know who these mass people are. And, they could be kind of agent provocateurs. We don't know. They could be part of the government that are trying to, push for violence within the protest so the police can have a just response to it. We cannot take liberties with this. If there is a masked protester, on our side, they need to be unmasked. And the funny thing is, all the counter protesters, these kind of stop the boat, liberal protesters, all of them are masked because they are agents of the government. They are funded by the Home Office. And the reason they're masked is to protect their identity. We can't be doing the same tactics they can be doing.
I agree. But taking it away from that, I do think you shouldn't be wearing masks. But I just wanted to show you some more videos of like the police using excessive force. This was in Epping after the ruling. This is a child, by the way. Okay.
Why are you doing that to him? Why are you grabbing him up, getting him off him? That's lovely.
Whoa. No, easy.
Hey, what are you doing?
Well, she's back on the thorns. Wait, just move the thorns. Just move the thorns out of the way, mate. Move the thorn move. Stand on it, mate. No, it's for both your officers as well. Your officers as well, mate. That's it.
He's not resisting. Right forward, you're on him. Hey, stand back!
Hey!
Get on your front now!
Mate, don't put him on the prone. Wait, mate, there's no need for the prone. There's no need for a prone position, bro. Wait, mate, there's no need for the prone in that. There's no need for the prone position in there, man. He was under control. There's no need for that. There was no need for that at all, mate. Copper's got his pepper spray out as well.
Got his pepper spray out on him.
Mate, there was no need for that prone position. No way, man. No way at all. That's well over restraint.
Everywhere.
Mate, he's a kid though, yeah? Just don't get his face in, mate. He's a kid though, yeah? Just don't get his face in, mate. He's a kid. Yeah, if he's under 16, don't get his face in.
So yeah, I mean that's like one of them, right? And then there's loads. I'm not going to go through all of it here, but there's another one with they pull this guy out of a motor as well, even at Epping as well. So there was a lot of clashes between the police. Look at this one quickly.
What are they doing to him? What are you doing? They're trying to drag him out of the car. What are you doing? No, you're getting silly now, bro. What on earth are they doing to him? He's trying to go home. Can't move at all there. They're making his son cry as well. Not getting out camera, his son is in tears. How are you dragging him out of the car? What are they doing? Look at his son. There's the son there, he's a fucking liberator. What are they doing? What are they doing to him? They've got him up to the van. This is police brutality now. Everyone, if you're watching this, make sure to share this everywhere. Clip all of this and get it out there. Send it to the news media, everything. People need to see what is going on tonight. Get this shared out everywhere you can see.
As I said, there's countless of videos from over the weekend of the police using excessive force, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it firstly, but do we see the same happen at those pro-Palestine protests?
Oh my God, they would dare do the same thing. The Palestine protest literally took over London every single weekend for months on end. We're talking about mass demonstration, We're talking about mass damage to vehicles as well. The amount of just random vehicles they would be smashing up, bottles thrown, and anyone that would dare fly a Union Jack in their presence was viciously beaten as well. That is the standard for the Palestine protests. Yet the police presence and their response to the raise the flag and the anti-immigration protest has been catastrophic. It's been out of this world. We're seeing a clear two-tier system here, and it just goes to show that the political class is crumbling, because at the end of the day, these protests, they kind of they're basically making, you know, their ideology redundant. They can't enforce their sort of Fabian ideology onto society when we're resisting it so much, and they threaten their power. This is the key. That's why they were okay with the Palestine protests, because there was no threat of power. They kind of almost agreed with it, and they didn't want to come across as you know, the standard words, racist, Islamophobic, things like that. But British citizens, with a clear right to protest against the sovereignty of their nation or the lack of protection of their borders, is a direct threat to their ideology. And I think, you know, it's going to get worse. I think the police presence is going to get worse. There is no stopping these protests. I don't see them stopping anytime soon, and they should not stop until we get our way. The issue is here, you know, if Labour are still in power, you know, that they're still going to be doing their thing. You know, as we go back to this sort of the Fabian ideology, they have been progressing this slowly, but when the time comes, they will strike, and this is their point. But when the time comes, you must strike hard, as Fabius did, or your waiting will be in vain and fruitless. So this is Labour striking hard on the sort of middle and the lower class British citizens. And, you know, I just think, how long can they go without acknowledging it? How long can they go without changing policy? You know what's interesting, Dan, is that they have pledged that all migrant hotels will be completely finished within their 4-year term. Yet they are offering 7-year contracts to hotels. You know, obviously we talked about the Samuel Leeds one last time. He alleged that he was offered a 7-year contract. So how can these contracts be 7 years, yet they're pledging to finish them in 4? It's a complete oxymoron.
Yeah, no, they obviously, we've already said they don't really want to stop it because they have the power to stop everything anyway. So that's not what they want to do. But as you can see in this article this morning, obviously the Parliament resumes after the summer recess. It's been a while since it was in PMQs, all of these kind of things. However, as stated, the Home Secretary, Vet Cooper, is set to outline a number of reforms to British asylum systems as MPs return to Westminster following the summer recess. The Home Secretary will tell the House of Commons on Monday that changes to the broken system will help wind down the use of asylum hotels, which the government has pledged to end by 2029, as you just said.
Yep.
The outline proposals will include an overhaul to the refugee family reunion process, which Cooper claims will give system greater fairness and balance. Families will be required to prove they have sufficient funds and tighter rules surrounding English language requirements, and will be put in place under the shake-up. The number of visas handed to the family members of asylum seekers has skyrocketed from 4,300 to 20,000 in just 1 year, and current guidelines allow family members of asylum seekers to avoid showing proof of having enough funds to live in Britain without claiming for universal credit or housing benefit or demonstrating they can speak English. So in contrast, Britons who seek to bring a foreign partner into the country must meet a minimum requirement of £29,000 per annum income. However, this is doing everything but dealing with the problem. So they're like new reforms on sorting out issues with asylum seekers. So it's like, yeah, you can come, but you've got to, when you get it, you've got to have a £29,000 job, and then your missus can come over. So we've still got these blokes still here. They're still coming. So they're doing everything but dealing with the problem with these new reforms. Oh, speak English, learn English, and then you can have everybody else come over.
Yeah.
It's not dealing with the issue, is it?
I think it's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing as well, because reforms to the asylum system might also mean that they're going to fast track asylum seekers and naturalize them at a faster rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go, yeah.
So then they're going to obviously have these people naturalized.
We'll get them in the workforce quickly so they can make 29 grand a year, all of these things, and they're going to be workers.
And you're going to see a lot of fraud with that as well.
Doctors, engineers, that's what they all are.
Oh, of course, the best, most educated people of society, but also, like to sexually assault 14-year-old girls. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, that. But, this is the problem. These, like, code words reform the asylum process. They want to import voters. This is a classic, democratic system that they used in the US. They want to import voters. They want to put them in sort of these low population councils. They want to make sure that Labour have their voters spread out in key areas, key sort of swing councils, and they want to make sure that they can win the next election. This is going to we are talking about the replacement of the native British people, and also every person that comes over is a vote that you don't have. Every single person is an equal, is an opposite of a vote of a British naturalized citizen whose family have been here for thousands of years. They are trying to outweigh the British class, and this is a direct threat to democracy, in my opinion. Very treasonous and insidious at a core level. And this I think, where is the accountability here? We've had people across the globe, as we've talked about, Elon, come out and say that this is treason, and as he says, re-immigration is the only way forward.
Yeah. Well, speaking about Elon Musk, again, I said he's been on a rampage this week. I just want to take a few minutes to go through his X profile, go through a look at some highlights. I've never seen it like this before. He come out a couple of times and spoke about the UK and the wrongdoings, but look at this, man. It's like, even now at the time of recording, he's been on a rampage all weekend, and it shows no signs of stopping. Like retweeting people in the space, obviously two-tier police in Britain. Pro-Palestine supporter climbs a war monument, no arrest equals police. A lady puts Union Jack on a building and gets arrested. Elon Musk retweets saying two-tier tyranny. As you say, re-immigration is the only way, about the UK. And look at this. It's just, I'm not going to go through everything, but my goodness me, he's just literally reposting after reposting 1 hour ago, all about Britain.
So that post there by Ian, I'm just going to read this out here. It says,
there you go, stop that.
Elon is right. The British government is literally cutting 7-year checks to hotel chains to warehouse illegals. 7 years. That's not a temporary crisis response. That's a long-term settlement plan. It's a calculated move to swamp Britain with endless waves of migrants, destroying communities and culture in the process. Let's call it what it is, treason. And then he replied to the tweet from Ian that said the goal is obviously long-term settlement to import voters. If the mass importation of voters is allowed to continue, it will succeed, and the vote of the British born will not matter. This is their overwhelming plan. This is the reason this is happening. They want to replace our votes with voters of immigrant backgrounds, of illegal immigrant backgrounds. And the thing is here that they set the laws and the judiciary in order to naturalize these citizens. So they are in complete control of this whole destiny of the country. And if you just kind of extrapolate what they're doing now over a 3 or 4 year scale, by the time the next election continues, we will have millions of people from now till then come in, and they're going to swing states, they're going to swing elections in councils, not states, but councils. It's completely insidious, and it is treason. And he's also highlighted many cases of the very insidious, sort of horrible crimes that have taken place in the UK. I can't go into detail, but obviously there are very clear cases, especially in Oldham, which I live very near as well, about a young girl who was sexually assaulted or raped many times in the same night after going to the police. And he's also, again, still been a massive backer of Advance UK and Ben Habibi, constantly retweeting him. The party is nearly at 25,000 members as well. I think they're going to make absolutely massive waves when they come and get that.
Well, they've announced that they're launching on the 27th of September. So that's like done now. So in Newcastle, that's going to be happening. So we'll see something big there, and he keeps on talking about it. But I mean, look at this. This is crazy. The amount of sheer volume he's tweeting about the UK. He's really going on a rampage and trying to, of course, make sure everybody knows in the world on what's actually going on. The UK is a big focal point on what's happening in the world. However, it's not just the UK. Japan. Japan as a place now as well is seeing mass protests erupting in Japan with regard to mass migration, and there's been video footage out there. Of course, they're sick of it. Like, this is just like a, you know, they want the deportations of all illegal migrants, and this was Japan on the streets. So they don't want it. They're Japan even coming out and doing it. Australia yesterday, we've seen it happen in freaking 9 different cities. Over 500,000 people taken to the streets, and the scenes in Australia were pretty cool as well. Like, it's happening everywhere. It really is happening everywhere. And again, all of the people are waking up, but you can kind of see it as more of a globalist agenda of infiltrating and flooding these countries with these individuals, but nobody wants them. Nobody said that they want these people in the country.
Exactly. The will of the people is being ignored here. And, you know, I looked at this post today after Elon said, you know, thank goodness for the First Amendment, so Americans have the right in order to take over these tyrannical governments. Well, the largest reason that they have the First Amendment is because King George levied death, excessive fines, imprisonment without trial, property foreclosure and forfeiture, and the banishment against the colonists for speech crimes under the Proclamation of Rebellion. And that was in August 1775. Now, we know what happened in 1776 was the revolution in America.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why the Americans have the free speech, is because our history of free speech and the sort of judicial arm imprisoning people who speak out against the status quo and against the government and against the king as well. You know, they levied, you know, all these different sort of judicial arms and you know, like, for example, obviously the excessive fines, the imprisonment without trial. We're seeing that today.
Yeah.
You know, Keir Starmer always goes on about, oh, we've had free speech in this country for a very long time, and we will continue to defend free speech. I mean, you look at the history, that's completely not correct. You know, the reason why the Americans have their free speech is because when we ruled them, you know, we didn't give them the free speech, and that is why it's the First Amendment. You know. So I think that's quite very interesting to look at the history. And if we're going to change this country and really have free speech, we need to adopt an American-style constitution. And I think that needs to be soon. Otherwise, we're going to go down a very, very dark path.
We're already going down that dark path. It's true. We're already living in it. Have you got anything else from UK, Europe?
No, not in terms of the protests. Obviously, the protests are sort of massive in the zeitgeist right now. But in terms of that, no.
Yeah, it's not too. There's that is taking up most of the sort of attention right now and going through with it. But there seems to be carnage happening in all areas of the globe, as I touched upon with Japan and Australia. But have you seen what's happening in Indonesia?
I have seen some videos, yeah. Now, the video I'm thinking of was unfortunately a Grab driver, which is like the delivery service in Indonesia. One of this 21-year-old Grab drivers was unfortunately run over and killed by a police
van. And we can't really show it on here because it was super violent, and we want to have respect for the individual.
Yeah.
But it's been doing the rounds, of course, on thingy, but there's been mass protests erupting in Indonesia, and it's been violent, really, really violent out in
Jakarta, right?
Yeah, in Jakarta.
Yeah.
And essentially the unrest began late in August over outrage about Indonesian lawmakers receiving a housing allowance of around 50 million rupiah, which is about $3,000, nearly 10 times the minimum wage in Jakarta. Protesters, mainly students, workers and motorcycle taxi drivers, accused political elites of being out of touch amid living cost, job cuts and inequality. Now, the escalation has been seen after that tragic incident that you just described there with the driver that was, of course, killed. And now we've seen that sort of violent outbreaks and damage. And the demonstrations have all turned violent. Mob attacks, arson and looting targeted regional parliament buildings, with at least 3 people killed in one blaze. Other damage is the finance minister's house was looted. Homes of MPs were attacked. and multiple state buildings were set ablaze. Rail and public transport systems in Jakarta faced significant disruptions, and across the country at least 6 people have died, with scores injured and thousands arrested. The government's response right now is that the president has moved to calm tensions by scrapping the housing allowance, putting a moratorium on overseas trips for MPs, and promising transparent investigations into the police crackdown. He also ordered security forces to take firm action against rioters and looters. So what we're seeing there is that individuals actually going at the MPs and actually going for them. And looking at the response in terms of the government response and why they were outraged, it's kind of worked. You know, you've seen the president come out and say that he's going to scrap this housing allowance that was put in place, and is also going to be, you know, making it more transparent with police. You know, many people have already been to Bali, which is like I suppose the Mecca, I suppose, of Indonesia, and you don't really see much stuff happening here, but that doesn't speak for the whole sort of country and what it's about. But with the police, they're massively against the police. Like, a lot of them have the power and are corrupt and all of these kind of things, and just like the power of pushing people around, which we've seen. I don't know if there's any repercussions of that police van running over that guy, but I've seen it a little bit in Bali with the police. Like, I don't need to be careful what I'm saying, but you know, they pulling you over with like foreigners over with a helmet, and taking cash off of you, sort of thing, to say, well, otherwise you'll go to court, which they don't necessarily do to everyone, but they'll target you and try and take some cash. So there's a bit of corruption. I've seen it, even in the scale of just Bali, right, which is like the Mecca as it has survived. But yeah, the rest of Indonesia are super upset with it.
And you know what? I see why they're protesting. $3,000 is a lot of money just for housing. That's separate from their wages as well. And that's just for housing.
Out here as well.
Out in Indonesia, that is massive. I'm sure in Indonesia you get an extremely nice space, $3,000 a month.
I think the minimum. I mean, I wouldn't know. I think the minimum wage, like the wage out there, the average wage is about 300 quid a month.
Yeah,
like that's what like normal people get, and that's like in Bali.
Yeah,
but like thinking about Jakarta, it would be like lower. It'd be like 100 quid, 200 quid a month.
And these politicians are raking what, $3,000
just expense on a house.
Yeah, it's insane. And that shows a massive disconnect. What does the government do to justify that much money? It's clearly because they can vote for their own wage. So all of them are going to vote for these types of wages because they control their own wages. So it's like if you're an employee of a business and you were in charge of the wages, and you get to set your own wage, you'd set it as high as you want.
Of course you would.
But it shows a complete disconnect from the actual reality of the situation. How is the government raking this much money? What are they using this money for? Politicians should not be, part of the elite class, because having a disconnect from the real life struggles of Indonesians and the sort of lower working class, it creates a massive disconnect with policy. And also you have this kind of elitist mentality where you look down on the lower class, and you don't work in their interest. Let me be clear in saying that the government work for the people, not the other way around. If the government works for itself, then they are a ruling class and they are illegitimate. If they are not imposing the will of the people, they are the enemy of the people. It is black or white.
Yeah. But these protesters, like, as well, like, what do you think about them going straight to the source? Imagine if you saw that in the UK, like attacking MPs' houses and actually going after government buildings. I mean, pretty much quickly. I'm not condoning that behaviour, but looking at that case study there, I mean, it suggests that they managed to settle down the unrest after like 2 days.
Yeah, I think it goes into kind of like the deep human psychology, Societal law and order is underpinned by violence, and it might not be direct violence. So there's this analogy. Okay, if you get a parking fine, what's the reason you pay that parking fine? Because if you don't pay it, they'll give you another fine. If you don't pay that, they'll send you to court. If you don't go to court, you'll go to jail, and they'll forcibly take you and put you in jail. Violence. So everything in society is underpinned by the threat of violence or violence itself. Now, obviously the Indonesians take quite a literal kind of like philosophical approach to that. they want change, so they looted the head of finance's house, which is quite ruthless. I'm not saying we should do that at all. But they did get the result they were looking for, because
pretty quickly.
Exactly, the president or the prime minister reversed the decision. And again, it goes back into this deep psychological, threat of violence ideology. It underpins society, whether you like it or not, or whether you recognize it or not. It's a sort of common truth. And with the context to the UK, the violence that we're seeing is mainly riled up by the establishment and the police. They're the ones sort of dragging these protesters and dragging people out of cars. So they're the ones threatening the violence in order to sort of reduce the protest. It's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the protesters that are starting it. At the end of the day, people have a right to protest. And if the government take away that right, again, we are then ruled by the government. The government no longer works for its people. The government is simply a business with a monopoly on violence. That's all it is. And they gain their money through taxes and through progressive tax systems. We cannot allow for a tyrannical government to rule us, because then we are simply pawns in a big chess game, and we are disposable. They want people who are loyal to the government. They want migrants. They want people who do not question the authority and do not question power. And that is why we are seeing such a push for illegal migration. Because guess what? The illegals, they're not going to protest. They're not going to be the ones going against the government, when this government were the ones that gave them the rights, gave them the naturalization, gave them the asylum claims. Why would they protest the government? It's backwards, and that's why they know that they have this power right now. They are importing pawns to fight against us almost. And I think the only way we're going to do this, I really hope that we do get an election sooner than the 4 years it's going to take, because I just think 4 years is far too long for these problems to go on. I think we're going to have irreversible damage. I think I don't want to say it's going to be too late, because I always back the government, but the problem is going to be so big, it's going to be so massive, that it's going to be incredibly difficult to make fast changes. Even on a 10 or 15 year timescale, this could be massive. And you know what? The effects of these decisions are going to last for generations. So that's why there has to be a clear push today. We need to make big choices. And as soon as that new government comes in, they need to be the right government, and they need to make seriously hard choices that a lot of people maybe on the left and in the centre might see as violent. But you know what? The violence that the British citizens are, getting from these migrants far outweighs the violence that the government should be undertaking to the illegal immigrants to remove them from society.
That's a great point. A great monologue there from yourself, man. I like that. I'm feeling a little bit, ready to go.
Thank you.
William Wallace in the making.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedoms.
Mate, as I said, it's been we've been going for about an hour or so. There's not really much else to discuss right now, but of course, expecting more subjects to come back. With Parliament resuming, of course, this week, there's going to be a lot of questions asked, because it's been gone for about 3 weeks, and there's been a lot of things happening over this 3 weeks. So there's going to be a lot to talk about this week. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for the support. Again, reminder, hit the old like button, hit the old subscribe button. Get your thoughts down there below. And Dom, have you got any final words for everybody?
No, just want to thank you for the support again. It's been absolutely incredible. We've only been doing this for 1 month, and we are so dedicated to this project. We've got so many things in plan. We're just waiting for the right stepping stones. We are going to be there on September 13th. Me and Dan are both going to be live on our respective channels. So if you do see us, come say hi. We're absolutely happy to get your thoughts and opinions.
Get some interviews going with the
exactly.
people.
Yeah, 100%. So, we're going to be there all day from the start to the end. And we can't wait to meet some of you and have some good conversations.
Sweet, man. Well, there you go. Till Wednesday. Take care. Look after yourselves. Peace.
Peace.